Three, two, one. This is Nick,
And Amanda.
and this is the Performance Plate Podcast, where we give you bite-sized bits of information based on nutrition and exercise science to improve your overall performance. And on today's episode, we got a really cool thing of the adaptive nature of the human body. So Amanda and I really have we work in fields where we see people all the time at all different stages of life, as well as all different stages of their overall fitness and health and wellness journeys. And sometimes we look at them and we're like, whoa, your body is an amazing thing because it was doing all this stuff, but you could be feeling 10 times better and doing it 10 times better. So
Mm,
because your body adapts, and we have that fortunate
hmm
thing in our fields where we see how well the human body can adapt to almost anything you throw at it. It's
hmm
just going to do it. And that's what we're going to talk about today, of how that can affect you without even realizing that can affect you.
Yes, because a lot of people come, or most people come to us because something doesn't feel right.
Yes, exactly. But how long have they not felt right before they came to us is usually our question we
Yeah.
ask.
Yeah.
Like, how long has it been
So
going
I know that what
on?
I I know. I on my website I put, your body's always giving you signs and signals, but we don't always listen.
Hmm.
Healthy people listen while those calls are still quiet before they become yells.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh.
So
That's so true.
yeah, before it becomes sirens, before
Yeah.
we're, you know, on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know that you want me to talk about what metabolism and how we
Hmm.
are the adaptive, oh my gosh, adaptive nature of our metabolism
Yes.
and how that's impacted by chronic undereating.
Hmm.
So we have to think about what plays into our metabolism in the first place. And we have our total energy expenditure for the day with
Yeah.
four different components. We have our BMR, which is our basal metabolic rate. And this
Hmm.
is the energy that you burn at rest just to keep your body functioning. So physiological reactions that are happening
Yeah.
inside your body to keep you functioning and breathing and your heart beating.
Hmm.
Then we have that makes up 60 to 70% of our total caloric burn.
Yeah.
Then we have NEAT, which is non exercise thermogenesis. And this is the non exercise activities such as posture, fidgeting, cooking, cleaning,
Hmm.
movement that's not exercise.
Okay.
That's not supposed to be exercise, things that we just kind of do
Yeah.
subconsciously.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that takes up like another, 20 to 30%.
Hmm.
Then we have TFE, which is the thermic effect of food, which is the energy that it actually takes to digest your food and store your food,
Yeah.
because that's work.
Yeah.
And that takes up about like another 10 to 15%. And at the very top, we have EAT or exercise activity thermogenesis, which is the energy that we use during exercise.
Yeah.
So a lot of people
So
want to
that's the
jump
least of
right
it.
to exercise, right? And this is just this little side note. A lot of people want to jump right to exercise to
Yeah.
increase metabolism and burn the fat and burn the calories. But if we look at this, it really only makes up 5 to 10% of our total caloric burn. And it's like,
Hmm.
what if we influence those other areas instead? And how can we do that, right? So that's just a little side
Yeah.
note. Keep that in mind.
Hmm.
Um, but in terms of dieting, right, we look at uh, how chronic dieting impacts our total energy expenditure.
Okay.
Your body's main goal is to keep you alive.
Yeah.
So
I'd say so.
if there's not, I'll say, there's not a lot of food coming in,
Yeah.
your body's like, whoa, let's slow down. We got to conserve because we want to stay alive for as long as possible.
Hmm.
So subconsciously, you actually will start to fidget less, move less. That's kind of like that neat category. Now, BMR, the
Yeah.
less food, this is your basal metabolic rate, the less food you feed your body, the less your body will actually require to carry out bodily functions.
Mm.
Things slow down.
Yeah.
So like thyroid production, hormone production, those things all kind of get put in the back burner and they slow down
Yeah.
and our body adapts. And
Hmm.
that's why we see people that stop losing weight, even though they're eating 1,300 calories a day, they're not getting anywhere because their body has adapted to that level. So they're not moving, right? Their
Yeah.
body's going to stay there for as long as they need to until more food starts coming in.
Hmm.
And then we also have the effect that it has on thermic effect of food, which, eating less means that there's actually less energy to digest and store. So of course that goes down as well.
Yeah.
And then when we think about exercise, the less energy you have, you're not going to perform as well. You're
Yeah.
not going to burn as much. So now
Hmm.
our total energy expenditure goes down. And this is
Yeah.
how we adapt to what's coming in.
Hmm.
Now, what's cool is just like we can adapt down, we can also adapt up.
Yeah.
And our bodies can actually adapt about 500 calories up or down while maintaining weight,
Yeah.
which is why, like, you could eat a ton on one day and then maybe not the next day, but then, at the end of the week, you still end up being the same. Or maybe you went on vacation, you ate a lot and you're like, wow, I didn't gain anything. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it probably wasn't as much as you actually thought and your body
Yeah.
adapted to it.
Hmm.
Um, now there's also like the water weight and stuff like that, which can,
Yes.
but a majority of the time, like the vacation weight is not actual weight. It's
Yeah.
just inflammation from different foods, or it's water from more carbs, etc. But it's not
Mhm.
actual fat because our bodies can actually adapt to that. And that's why even over the weekend, like, you mess up or you eat more than you wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a big deal. Your body's got things in place for this, right? Like
Yeah.
that's why, that's people say that all the time. Hey, don't worry about it. Just eat normal the next day. You don't need to
Yeah.
diet the next day. You can eat normal and your
Yeah.
body will be good and you can
Yes.
maintain your progress.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this also goes for people that have been chronically dieting for a long time.
Hmm.
They're nervous to eat more. Like you said, we get people that they're doing all of these amazing things, but they don't feel good. They're
Yeah.
like, yeah, my body can do this and this, but I'm not, I'm sleeping like crap. My
Yeah.
energy's not there. I'm having trouble making decisions. I have brain fog. I'm
Mm.
irritable. I'm anxious. I'm depressed, right?
Yeah.
All of these different feelings that a lot of times can be compounded or even stem from not giving our body enough nutrients and
Yeah.
food
Hmm.
or rest.
That's yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That's a huge
So,
factor.
like you said, what if you could perform at this level and do all of these things, but also feel 10 times better?
Hmm.
That's why we do what we do. We're
Yeah.
not here to stop you from doing those things. Maybe
Yes.
temporarily, sometimes to help your body heal, but we're
Hmm.
we're here to get you there plus some. Like we want to
Yeah.
see you exceed that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, in order to exceed that, we have to rest
Hmm.
and recover more and eat more. And a
Yes.
lot of people are nervous about doing that because they're like, wait, this got me here. But we're
Hmm.
like, yeah, but this is going to get you not only here,
Yeah.
but here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, sometimes it's kind of like I could go on a tangent about that, but um,
That's all right
it,
though.
it's just, kind of, I know we want to talk about this today to really tell people, hey, like, your body was made, your body is adaptive. And just
Hmm.
like it can go down, it can also go up. And when you go up and you start to create that flexibility for yourself, now you can go anywhere from there.
Yeah.
Right now you're supporting your body and
Yeah.
now performance can go up. You can also go into another fat loss phase down the line because your body's
Hmm.
actually going to respond to it now. Or
Yeah.
you could
Yeah.
go into a muscle building phase, right? If you're having trouble putting on muscle, hey, you're
Hmm.
probably not eating enough, right? If your training's there and you're following a progressive overload plan, probably not eating enough. Going
Yeah.
back to that.
I think that's it. I think it's amazing to really harp on the fact that, like, besides that 500 calorie buffer that you were talking about, up or down, that's amazing because people don't understand how much 500 calories actually is. That's a fair
Yeah,
food. Within reason too. Like, I'm sure people have bigger buffers and stuff, but the average would be that.
right.
But when the point of you saying, if you're feeding yourself this, the body literally slows down. So your basal metabolic rate, what keeps you alive, will shut down more. So that's like, just physiologically speaking, think of that aspect of, if things are slowing down, you're probably burning less fat throughout the day. You're building
Of
less muscle.
course.
Your
Of
your your
course.
your physiological functions that you want to have happen are actually probably not happening because you're downregulated. You adapted to a
Mhm.
downregulated state, and we're not going to do that stuff. And I know you hear it quite often. I'm sure you hear it quite often too. um, I never knew I could eat so much and feel so good and look so good. I,
Everyone I work with.
exactly. And
And me too. I realized that,
yeah,
myself when I went
and
through it.
takes people a while to realize that because it's a process. But after they start doing that, it's like, well, yeah, because now you're upregulated. And possibly that you're eating enough to support your body's basic needs that it's been wanting to do for you, X, Y, and Z, control your hormone regulation. Like the fact that you said hormone regulation, hormone production, thyroid production, all that stuff decreases if your calories decrease because your BMR is like, well, we don't need to prioritize that, you
Right.
know? So
We're
it's,
just going to prioritize staying alive.
yeah, heartbeat, breathing, mental
Yeah.
function,
Yeah.
like literally the autonomic stuff that our body does without even realizing it that keeps us alive. Like you don't have to
Right.
think about your heart to imagine having to tell your heart to beat literally every second. That would be terrible. So the fact that like as soon as you start increasing and the body's like, ooh, we have more energy, let's actually adapt to this new energy and start building these hormones back up, start creating these things. And guess what? You have regular hormone production, you get the results that you want. You want to build
Right.
muscle, you want to look
Yeah.
like this badass human being, you want
Yeah.
to do all this stuff, you want to feel like a badass. Well, if your
Right.
hormones are regular, guess what?
And that's the other reason that people come to us because they don't want to stop here. They want to surpass that, but they're having trouble surpassing that.
Yes.
And then we were, we're playing devil's advocate before we got on here. We're saying, okay, like we adapt, right? So like, what if we just adapt and we let our bodies adapt and we keep stressing them out, right?
Yeah, yeah. Of
Okay, sure, you could survive, right? You could keep doing what you're doing.
course.
But why? Like,
Yes.
why? What's the
Yes.
benefit?
Yeah. What's
I
the
don't
point of
know.
feeling miserable all the time? You know what I
I
mean?
don't know.
What's the point of
Yeah,
adapting to the miserableness of it or not knowing how good you can feel? And
right.
I started realizing that more so after getting to know you more and talking to a patient and whatever it was. And I like now I did before, but like I really harp on like how's your diet? And I don't delve into it in the sense that you do by any means, but I'm just like I listen and I have a good gauge at this point of if someone's eating enough or not eating enough based on their what they do. Like
Yeah,
just years of tracking from bodybuilding and stuff like that. I like they tell me their diet. I'm like, sounds like you're eating like 1,200 calories. And sometimes I'm pretty
yeah.
close. Like I'm but the point being is I had this guy training for this military thing. He had to do all this crazy stuff. And I was like, and he was telling me like his training, and he was like, Nick, I just can't get past this spot, like whatever it is, whatever it is. And I'm like, it wasn't his injury, and like we're doing all this stuff. And I was like, hey, how's your diet? Just randomly. And he's like, oh, and he was telling me his diet. And he had this connotation of carbs are bad. Now, we're not going to go down the whole tangent of carbs being bad or good or anything.
Yeah,
The point being, though, is his body adapted to a high protein diet, very low carb diet, but he was trying to do things that required a lot of energy of his body from the energy stores and the glycogen stores, which the only way to truly have that for running purposes, especially,
hmm
um, is to have enough carbohydrates in your system.
yeah. And here's the thing too. We think about the adaptive nature. Do you think we're really supposed to spend all of our life eating the same exact thing and
No,
amount
no,
every day? No, we adapt, right? We need to change the stimulus appropriately. But now here,
yes,
you don't want to be changing it every week,
yeah,
right? That's it's like training, right? It's like
yeah,
progressive overload training. You want an appropriate amount of time spent within, one block. You
yeah,
don't want to be changing the type of training that you're doing every single week,
yes,
but there are ebbs and flows to life, and there are, you know, it is like you're not supposed to spend all of your life in the same spot. You're not
mhm,
supposed to be high protein for your entire life. You're not supposed to,
yes,
there's
yeah, yeah,
sometimes you require higher carbs, sometimes you require lower carbs.
yeah.
Um, and I think it's important to remember that because we get caught up in eating the same things and the same
Mhm.
mindset that we've, you know, been operating in for a long time. And um, it's not always benefiting us anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like the circumstances change. And I think that goes for literally anything in life.
Yeah.
Circumstances are always changing,
Yes.
and so are we.
Yeah. So to ask you a question on the changing up the eating thing. Now, I could be wrong and I could have misinterpreted my nutritionist a while back when I had all my stomach issues. Like I think it's almost 7 years ago, no, 8, no, whatever, 5 years ago now. Um, but she was looking at my diet beforehand. I listed out everything. She's like, you've been eating the same 5 to 6 items, 7 items your whole time while bodybuilding and on. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, you got to mix it up. And I was like, why? She's like, your metabolism and your body literally has just gotten so used to this that
Mm-hmm.
you're not really, and I could be like, I could have misinterpreted her, but she was saying pretty much that your body is so used to this all these food stuff, digesting it a certain way. When you start throwing in
Yeah.
different things to it, fattier foods, whatever it is, um, just even if it's good fattier foods, your body's not used to all that stuff. So then you're getting maybe some gas, some bloating, some things that you felt uncomfortable with, and you were just ignoring those signs because you were just
Mm-hmm.
adapting to that regular diet. And that kind
Mm-hmm.
of led to it. She's like, you need a variety in your diet. And I was like, what? And so like working
Yeah.
with her
Oh,
was
that is
really changing. I mean, I eat all sorts of
such
stuff.
a great point. Yeah.
So that's
She's,
true, right? Like,
of course. I mean,
okay.
that's the reason that you hear about low FODMAP diets
Hmm.
that people will use for
Yes.
SIBO or IBS,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
can definitely be helpful,
Hmm.
but there needs to be
Yeah.
a timeline on them because if
Yes.
you're in that for too long, now you're going to have issues because there's not enough diversity. You think about the gut microbiome,
Yeah.
the healthiest gut is the most robust gut. You want to be able to handle and the most amount and the most diverse amount of food possible
Yeah.
without having all of those side effects and symptoms.
Yeah.
And that's why like I think this is on my Instagram too, like elimination diets are not the answer to your gut problems or your metabolism or anything like that. They
Hmm.
might be helpful in terms of stages of a protocol
Yes.
in healing,
Hmm.
but that's not the end answer, and that's not where you're supposed to be unless of course you have something like a true food allergy, right? An immune response like to peanuts, or say you have
Yes.
Hashimoto's, okay, you can't really eat gluten, right? But
Yeah.
if you are someone that doesn't have those things, a majority of people need to be really careful with that because we need a variety of food, and
Mhm.
it's very important to switch it up. And then
Yeah.
we even think about that on like on a macro level. We need to switch up our macros too. We're not supposed to spend all of our time in a surplus or a dieting phase or even maintenance at that, right? Like we're
Mhm.
not supposed to always be eating at our exact maintenance for every single day of the year. I think
Yeah.
that it's very important that we go through periods.
Hmm.
And that's like what I base my coaching on too, is that, I'm always taking people through different phases and things like that to really help optimize those. And then you learn how to do that kind of intuitively and on your
Yeah.
own, which is cool. But
Yeah.
a lot of us don't really know how to do that because we're surrounded by so much like diet culture and we're surrounded by food all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, and we have our own, perceptions in
Hmm.
terms of like the amount that we need
Yeah.
and what that looks like. It's like too much noise to actually figure out what the heck we're supposed to do, which is why I find actually educating on like how this stuff works and looking at something like a food log,
Hmm.
and how that's impacting you, and pulling all these pieces together can really help people see that full picture and just know their body better and know
Yes.
how to serve their body
Yeah.
specifically, because everyone will be different, and
Mhm.
it's hard to kind of block out all that noise sometimes from diet culture, from the opinions of people on the internet, and even our
Hmm.
parents, right? I was laughing with one of
Yeah.
my clients that about our
Yeah.
moms when we were younger, and how
Yeah.
they were, like the beach body stuff, or how we knew their
Yes.
weight at their wedding, right? They told us what their wedding was. It wasn't like they were like pushing like you know uh dieting on us, or purposely doing that. It's just more so what they grew up with as well, right? Like, oh, like this was the diet I did before my wedding, and this is
Yeah.
what I had to do then, and I didn't do carbs here, and this is what I weighed, right? Like
Yeah.
this stuff has always been kind of pushed on, and now I think we're coming into at least I see the shift in terms of like coaches and social media and things like that, people that are going against this now and teaching
Yeah.
people, hey, this isn't
Yeah.
okay, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's part of the reason that I think it can be hard to pull yourself out of this
Yeah.
chronic dieting.
Hmm.
um, but that's also why we're spreading this information, because we want you to understand that this is how it works and this is why that's not good long term, and
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
no reason to torture yourself.
Yes. And I think that's part of the huge factor is the adaptiveness of like you can adapt to feeling pretty rough or you can adapt to feeling great. Like your body will adapt to what you want it to adapt to.
Hmm.
And it's the same when like you hear people they run marathons on like a broken ankle. Their body adapted. It was used to the stressors, it got used to it, adapted over time. Is it
Now, are they going to go and run 14 miles on a broken ankle every day after that? No,
no,
but they're going to finish out the marathon that they were doing, right? And
exactly.
that's what people do, right? It works once, and we're like, oh, I can do it. Let me push the button every day
Yes. Yes.
Why though?
No,
Like,
yeah. You need to adapt. You adapted at that moment.
yeah,
So
it's great,
yes.
which is awesome. And that's why that adaptation is so cool because our bodies are so resilient. But
Yeah.
why do we want to push them into this hole all the time? Like, why can't we just take time off that broken ankle,
Yeah.
rest it so that we can go back and then do an even longer race and hit a
Yes.
PR?
Yeah.
There's no
And
reason to be working on broken stuff.
yeah. And those things like so the another good point about the adaptive nature of the human body is, and I say this to myself sometimes, is like, okay, if I did this at once with this amount of like we'll say calories or whatever it was, um, I can do this again. I can do this
Mhm.
if I need to again. And you can adapt, you can overcome, because the human body is so amazing at that. But do you need to continue to adapt in a negative way where it's like pushing that button every single time? No.
Right.
Take a rest back, go through a different phase, adapt to that new phase. So when you need to access the intenseness again, whether it's a caloric deficit or for some people who have trouble gaining weight, a caloric surplus, because some people do actually have trouble with that whole aspect, and it can be uncomfortable to gain weight.
Of course.
Um, your body can
Oh, you're
adapt to
saying,
it, and you can like mentally help yourself through that whole process while your body's adapting.
mhm.
So I
Yeah,
think it's
definitely.
I think it's wild when we think about the human body and adaptations, and just like especially when you bring it to the sense of what you were saying with really the bare basics of the BMR and how that works and how like okay let's think about fueling wise. And I really like I wonder, and I've tagged you in this before, and people have said it to me like, oh, like I'm so surprised how much I underate. It's like, oh yeah, like but you feel full. You're like, I feel like I'm not under eating. I feel like I'm not, and I hear it. I feel like I'm not overtraining. I feel like this. I feel like that. You feel like that because you're used to that. Now
Right,
imagine
exactly.
if you do less, you'll have more profound results
Hmm.
because less is more in that
Hmm.
training wise, not nutrition wise is a whole other aspect, but maybe it's less worrying about every
Yes.
little thing you're eating so you can get your calories in because that's sometimes more
Hmm.
important than all right, well, I need to get 1,200 calories, we'll say, but I can only have Greek yogurt and boiled chicken. Well, how the hell are you going to get there with the most calorically less foods possible?
Yeah.
I mean, boiled chicken is like, I don't know, 6 ounces and maybe 120 calories, if
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
You know what I
for
mean?
sure.
I think a fourth a cup of Greek yogurt is, I think it's 150, actually. I don't know for sure, but these are just random numbers. But you know what I'm saying? Like, how are you going to get to a
Yeah.
1,200 calories when you're so worried about that aspect of it?
Hmm.
Where like we have to understand when we try to adapt, like you can just you can increase your calories with whatever food you need to, and then your BMR will adapt higher, your body will adapt higher, and then next thing you know, you're feeling better, and then you're training to this next level, and then you adapt to that level of training,
Hmm.
and then you're stronger and setting PRs and doing all these things. And when we say training too, we don't mean just weightlifting and all that stuff. We
Yeah.
mean like whatever your training is. If your training is literally just walking every day, well, next thing you know, you're going to be like, I have more energy to walk faster. I'm finishing my 2 mile walk every day in, I was going to say 8 minutes, but that would be like marathons. That's insane. That's like, that's insane. But like,
That would
you
be
finish
like
your
the
two
fast
mile.
walkers in the Olympics.
Yes, exactly. That's what that would be like. But you know what I mean? Like, you're finishing things faster. So maybe you get 3 miles in with the short amount of time you have in the morning because now
Hmm.
you've adapted to this new level of awesomeness. And then you can always go further and then adapt to that and then go
Right.
further and adapt to that and just keep scaling up and then you adapt to it. And you see it a lot when, how many times have you seen something where someone said to you in passing conversation, can you believe, for you, more or less, it's like, can you believe you saw so and so just like they ran this whatever ultra marathon, which I think is I forget how many miles that is. It's like, yeah. It's like, I can't believe that. That's insane. Like, because their body adapted to that. Because you know what they did? They started with a marathon, multiple
Yeah.
marathons a year. Their body adapted to
Nothing
that.
surprises me anymore. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Their body
Hmm.
adapted to that stimulus. Same with, oh, you look at this person, he's eating 3,000 calories a day, but he's got, we'll just say, for example, they're shredded. And it's like, well, their body
Which
adapted to
happens a
those.
lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, but like, but their body adapted.
Yeah.
It's like, all right,
Uh-huh.
this is what I need. This is what's going on. I'm going to adapt to it. And then their hormone levels could be through the roof because BMR is so great because they're just like, dude, we got all this food. Let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Yeah. For sure.
So I
It's
think that's
crazy.
I think realistically, adaptation wise, we have to understand how if we start in a right spot, even sometimes it sucks to find out that you're not doing the best for yourself and you've adapted negatively. You can always get yourself
Mhm.
out of that situation and become a better
Right.
version.
Of course, you got yourself in there, you can get yourself out.
Exactly. And then you can
Yeah.
adapt to this new stuff. Just know adaptation takes time. So
Mhm.
that's the other thing.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
a wild thought process
That's
sometimes.
where people tend to struggle.
Yes.
That's another podcast.
Yeah, that's another episode for another time. But
Yes.
this is amazing to hear. I love because that's why I wanted you to talk about more metabolism based adaptation stuff as opposed to like
Yeah.
everybody knows the if you weight train, your body adapts to that stimulus, and you have to go up and weight and progressively overload and all that stuff. A lot of people know that, but they don't know the little things like you just said. And I honestly didn't even think of it that way, to be honest, with slowing down not necessary functions. Don't get me wrong, there's functions, but there's not ideally necessary ones. Like main functions that are ideally breathing and your heartbeat, realistic and thinking,
Yeah.
those are the main functions. Other than that, your body's like, whatever. So like hormones, we'll just
Yeah.
let it go,
Right.
we'll see what happens.
Mhm.
So at that mind-blowing thing, to be honest, when we think about that and how just something so simple as your nutrition can really change up everything.
For
So
sure.
another awesome episode. Thank you, Amanda.
Thanks, Nick.
Some crazy things you can think about with adaptation. Just take for your own benefit. Take a look at how long you've been doing things and seeing are you really benefiting from them anymore, or did you just adapt to a certain way? So are you
Mhm.
progressing or staying still and all that stuff? And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me and Amanda about any type of things with like adaptation. We'll say like, hey, feel like I've been doing the same thing forever and I haven't made any progress. Well, there could be many factors and we can help you with that.
We're here
So
to help.
yes. So another awesome episode. Tune in next week for our next episode on the Performance Plate podcast. And you can follow me at AchievePTNJ on Instagram and Amanda at state.fit as well. And if you would like, it'd be awesome if you rated this podcast on whatever you're listening to, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, or if you see it on YouTube, whatever it is, and subscribe so you get the next notification when we launch another episode. So until next week, Amanda, thank you again. As always, this was fun.
Thanks, Nick.